Now, while this is advice about how to make better art, better novels, be a better actor, it is also the story of the game of status. I recently read this book, The Status Game, and in it, author Will Storr writes, "The status game is deeply implicated in the great human hungers. If you want to rule the world, save the world, buy the world, or fuck the world, the first thing to pursue is status. It's the golden key that unlocks our dreams." And so if you want to make people like you more, if you want to have more of an impact, you actually have to learn this game that you're already playing. It is a game, but it also is like a deadly one, and it is inherent to the human condition. In this video, I want to cover some of the best ideas that I came up with about status, my own take on them, and also the profoundly simple ways that people sort of mess it up. They misdirect what status is and what isn't. They kind of come across as goofy as a result. So let's get into it. Now, the first idea is the foundation behind status, but it's not status itself. And that's money and fitness. Money and fitness are foundational to status. You need them before you can start really playing the status game, but they are not the thing itself. This is why when your odd gym bro puts up a bunch of shirtless selfies of him on Instagram, he doesn't actually look that cool, even if his body is fantastic. Or when a rich person flexes their car or their beautiful house, or even if they're on a yacht full of like a bunch of women in bikinis and it seems like they're having a party, it doesn't actually seem that profound. It's because there is no action, there is no purpose in what they are showing off. And we as an audience can feel that. Consider Batman, for example. Batman's got the body. Batman also definitely has the money. But he isn't telling the story of either of those things. The story that he's telling is about Gotham, his city, the city that he loves, and the city he wants to save. Suddenly, the Lamborghini that he drives has a meaning. He's driving it on the way to the hospital to prevent it from exploding. Or the fact that he's doing push-ups in a dungeon with an absolutely like incredible physique, or doing weighted pull-ups, it matters all of a sudden. And it's not because the physique itself is impressive, though it is. It's because he's building up his body to take on his enemies. There is meaning in the action, and the meaning of status comes from the action. But
well done, Mr. Sinbad. I would add some more things to it here. So, very often we'll see somebody in a Lamborghini and we'll think, oh, it's got a Lamborghini. And we are somewhat impressed by the thing, but not completely. But you're more impressed with who that person might have had to become in their life to get that Lamborghini. Who do they have to evolve into to have that much resource or power? The Lamborghini itself is an honest signal. An honest signal means that something that's hard to achieve or hard to get, and somebody who has it means that they really have done the work, most likely to be a person that deserves that Lamborghini. So that's what we're attracted to. Muscles are an honest signal as well. Like, it's the honest signal that you had a diet, you had the time to go in the gym repeatedly, that you had discipline, and you went hardcore repeatedly in the gym. And you stuck to your plan, you didn't waver, and you didn't let negative emotions take you over. That's what's attractive about the muscles and the cars and all these things. But too many people make the mistake of mistaking the status almost like an icon for the actual status itself, or for the person that. But yes, there is many people that have these status icons that achieve them, and they aren't really great people you want to be around, and they're not that baller. It's just that they got the thing somehow, some way.
But too many people confuse the foundation behind them, the money and the fitness and all the things that come with it, with status itself, whereas it's not. Now, with that out of the way, where does your status come from in the modern world? And how can you bring it to its full potential to really make a dent in the world? There's 4 ideas I want to share in this regard. The first, choose an archetype, because it is your competitive advantage in life. I came up with this idea of the archetype, choosing basically a role that is true to you and who you really are on a deep level. And this is useful because it plays to your strengths. For instance, let's say you're an introvert. You don't have an easy time talking to people, but you love reading books and you're incredibly observant. And because you've been reading for so many years, your vocabulary is really strong and you can identify ways to label different things or bring synergy between different ideas just because your mind was built that way. You would not make a great socialite, You wouldn't make a great pickup artist, or maybe a startup CEO who like motivates other people. I mean, you could maybe train yourself up to do it, but it's not inherent to who you are. But what you could be is a writer. and an absolutely fantastic writer. And it's just an archetype that we build ourselves into because it's true to ourselves, and then we can maximize off of it. The writer in the 21st century is incredibly powerful. They always have been. William Shakespeare, Arthur Miller, Tennessee.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of truth to that. Where am I on this thing? That's not where I am. Where am I? Boom. Yeah, I would absolutely say there was a lot of truth to that. I mean, even myself, I'll show you a quick little personal story if you care to hear one. Even for myself, I am in the role that I'm in as a coach. But how did I get this way? I basically picked a lane and then I played to my strengths. You hear me, people? Pick a lane and play to your strengths. That's what you got to do. So me, I grew up in a very spiritual household, religious, lots of talking. I did, lots of fitness groups at school when I was younger. I used to do music. I was a music producer. All these things kind of played to my strengths. And also I was like a weirdly dressed guy. All this played to my strengths, right? So then when I decided to do something in my life, the opportunity for coaching came up, and everything I had done before kind of like led into that. And I was like, you know what? I think if I go for it, I can have some really original ideas and concepts. But I didn't choose that lane. It wasn't like I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do what that person's doing. It wasn't like that. It's like, well, what am I good at? If I compound these strengths, one on top of the other, more and more and more, where will this take me? Oh, haha, surprise, over here in like high status coach land. And that's how it happened. And I think you can do the same thing. Look at your strengths. Look at things that people say you're great at. Look at things that people say they would pay you for, they maybe try to pay you for. Look at things that you've invested into yourself, areas of your life you've invested into yourself, and compile all that together and say, do I got something here?
Williams, all the great writers in the last several hundred years, they've had an impact on the world just because of the way they can speak and the language that they bring into the minds of others. Other great archetypes, the businessman, the athlete, the rock star, the actor, the magician, the playboy, the scientist, the engineer, the aviator, the adventurer. Honestly, I just came up with these random words, but they also have their own image that goes with it. And it's something that if you thought about, you could understand. You've got an archetype. You've got this thing that is a swirling combination of who you are. And it's so incredibly true to you. And the best shot you have at winning the status game in life is to dig deeper into that rather than trying to be something else. For me, I realized I was the director. And that was kind of a bizarre realization over the years because I've actually always wanted to be an actor. Yeah, let me just see what this looks like. But at some point I had to acknowledge that I'm actually, I'm not that good. I'm decent, I'm like a 7 out of 10 actor. That's nowhere near world-class status. It's not enough to like really make a dent in the world of acting. But I'm like a 7 out of 10 at a lot of different things. I'm good at holding a camera. I'm decent at composition. I'm decent-ish at editing, at least with timing. I know how to direct people and block different people. I've gotten really great at pre-production. I'm like a middling combination of so many different things, and I'm able to orchestrate all of these things between different people. I mean, that's a director. I even had a conversation with everyone on my team about this, like, what is your archetype? And they all landed at different things, and even their take into different things, was their own journey. For instance, my editor, Thomas, he's amazing at VFX, and he makes these awesome short films on his own YouTube channel. They're always seeped in with his knowledge and love of VFX, even if it's in a simple way, like the way a type moves across the screen as he says a word, and the way it like melts out of frame or something like that. And so I asked him, what is your archetype? And he says, maybe I'm the editor. And we all have our own kind of advantage that we really could identify and seep into. But too many of us, we think we need to adopt a little bit of everyone's thing, when rather you just need to dig deeper to who you already have always been. An important aspect of this regard that I think should be acknowledged is that you should never hyphenate your archetype. And this is something that's really common in Hollywood. People say, what's your job? And they'll just say, oh, I'm an actor, writer, director, producer, investor. If you're too many things, you're nothing. And so you almost have to force yourself to pick one, because it is in the depths of one thing where you find specificity, and in that specificity, power. So that's principle one, choose an archetype. The second then is to build off of your archetype. If you're a filmmaker, how does he or she dress? Where does he live? What assets does he have? You want to create a vision around what like the final form version of your archetype could be. You're gonna build up status by becoming very well known, ideally in a specific community. You can't be global until you're really well known for what you do, and being world class in something is something that's gonna take years. But what you can do is identify the full potential of your archetype in one specific community. A great way to easily come into this is with clothing. Clothes really can make the man. In one study, it's called Economic Status Cues from Clothes Affect Perceived Competence from Faces. Participants were shown photos of people wearing either rich clothes or poor clothes, and they automatically assumed those in wealthier looking outfits were significantly more competent and of higher status. Now, this effect was still there even if the participants were told in advance, hey, the clothes don't matter. They're completely irrelevant. Like, the clothes are irrelevant to this person's position in life. Even if they were told, like, everyone here makes 80K a year. They're all from the Midwest. They all make 80K. The people in a certain, like, clothing, they were identified as higher status.
Yeah, yo, clothing is so important, my guy. Clothing is so important. I'll tell you 2 reasons why. 'Cause I had a hard time articulating it, and I finally figured it out. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we figured this out a few years ago. Clothing is important because it's a nonverbal, right? It speaks for you before you even arrive at the place. The person meets you from across the room, they see the clothing, and it speaks for you. You see? So it is a nonverbal. It's like a social cue. And the other thing about clothing is it puts you in a group. Like, you'll notice, like, all the people in clubs wear like the baggy black sweatshirts and the hat, right? And you know, they're regulars at clubs. Everybody that goes to the gym seriously wears Gymshark or Under Armour or whatever, right? Like, the clothing makes you a part of a tribe as well. When I see you and I look at you dressed a certain way, I'm like, oh, okay, he's a certain tribe. I see a guy in a fitted shirt, like a tailored shirt, I'm like, oh, he's part of the tribe. And the third thing is that it makes a great first impression. Makes a great first impression. And you never get a second chance to do a first impression. That's what's called the first impression. Only comes once, and you got to pick that first impression while you can. So I thoroughly agree on the clothing part.
And the craziest part of this study is that these detection systems were made in a single flash of a photo, lasting 129 milliseconds. So the clothes, both the ones we wear and how we feel in them, and the way people perceive us, that judgment about our archetype and our place in it is incredibly quick. This is why, actually, the money game is a foundation to status, but it's not that game itself, is because it allows you to explore what the final form version, of your archetype looks like. The third idea then is organizations, brands, and events. Now, you don't need to be in the public eye necessarily, but as you sort of work on your archetype and you work on the actions of the work that you're doing, you do want to choose a platform where you house your branding and identity. This could be a personal website, it could be Instagram. YouTube, obviously, is a fantastic place to house your personal brand. And then once you have your platform, once you have a place where you store your digital front, you want to create partnerships that make sense. At the very least, create dream partnerships that you would eventually want to work towards. For instance, if you're an adventurer, you love hiking and travel in the outdoors and just being like a manly man who chops wood, you could actually form an ambassador partnership. There's this company called Filson, who's actually one of my coaching clients turned me on to. They've been making really high-end apparel for adventurers for a long time. Or for instance, if you're really into motorcycling, you could attend the occasional moto night that your community regularly hosts. Basically, no matter what your identity is, you can find partnerships with brands that people would recognize or associate you with. There is an idea called Dunbar's number. Basically says that our brains can only house up to 150 names, brands, faces, things. One of those could be Coca-Cola, one of those could be Nike, and one of those could be your friend from high school. But in total, our brain only thinks about 150 total people at most who might be in our tribe. This is why if I, go out with some girl and I tell her about Jake Gyllenhaal and my love of him in some movie of his, Prisoners maybe, she hasn't thought about Jake Gyllenhaal in 8 years because he's not a part of her Dunbar's number. Whereas I think about Jake Gyllenhaal, like, with some frequency, probably like once every 5 days, just because I think he's so cool. So you can't be everything to everyone, but you can sort of create your archetype and then find associations, especially in your own community, associations, partnerships, programs, locations that make sense for the archetype that you're building.
Yeah, he nailed it, but it's even more than that. I mean, here's another thing to consider. Every man that you know is powerful, that's successful in life. Did he do it on his own? Does he have no one around him? Or does he have a supporting team? In fact, I'd argue that everybody that has a high status in life, they're a boss or a manager of some kind, or they at least direct people underneath them. Because no man can build Rome by himself. I really believe that. So another part of it is you need people that have achieved things in life to help you out, to help you get to somewhere. You cannot do it alone. So you need other men that have resources to look at you and say, Hey, I was just like you. I want to help you out. Or you can help me in my situation. You can help me out, my friends, my family, my health, whatever, my network, my expansion, my brand image. You help out people. And the more you help out successful people and you think about solving their problems, you ask yourself, how can I make their day easier? You actually call them and say, what are your challenges? How can I make your day easier? What can I help you out with? The more you do that, the more you will have that expanded network of brands and people and high status people that you can rely on and call on.
You're probably not in most people's Dunbar number, unless you're already a celebrity, and then you would not be watching this video, I bet. However, you could readily form connections with places that are already in some people's mental space, and that's just by forming partnerships. My trainer, for instance, he just formed a partnership with InnoSubs. This is based off of his modest YouTube channel, that I occasionally talk to him about, and his excellent physique. And even when I didn't have any digital presence online, I still managed to shoot commercials with like Wells Fargo, Cadillac, Sleep Number, and I managed to form connections with people in the Twin Cities Film Festival, for instance, just because I was trying to dig deeper into my archetype. And so I was able to form some kind of partnerships, even though I was still early in my journey. You can form partnerships, and that's what you definitely need to do. You need to sort of dig deeper into the organizations that are around you and see what you can learn from them. No matter your station, you could at least make a list of brands or organization connections that you could make or eventually would want to make to increase your social capital. The final front of this then is events. Events are actually the most high status thing you could do for yourself because they help solidify your vision of yourself, your archetype of yourself, into an action. And I accidentally stumbled upon this idea 2 years ago because I was making a video on a Bollywood director series, basically a parody of one Bollywood director that I really like, Zoya Akhtar. And to capture some of this footage, I needed to shoot a scene of like people on a boat hosting a party. I just threw the party. Instead of like trying to find a boat that I could get on, someone else's boat and like film their thing, I was like, okay, the sponsor gave me $3,000. I'll just go on the boat and I'll like go on the boat party. And so I found myself accidentally doing one of the highest status things I would do because as a result of throwing this party, 60 people came on this big ass boat. That was my boat, at least for those 4 hours. It was my boat and they had the time of their life. What that party did for my social standing was far more significant than what it did for my channel's growth at the time. Because at the time I didn't have many friends, but everyone who came on that boat, they put up some Instagram post or something about it, of them on the boat or eating and drinking and having a good time. And they all had to interact with me, the host. And because that event was also working towards one of my personal projects, a YouTube video, they all had to kind of go through me. They all had to interact with me and see me basically in the thick of living out my archetype. It was accidentally a deeply status building endeavor. There's a reason Leonardo DiCaprio holding a cocktail with fireworks behind him from The Great Gatsby, that shot of him like this, is the meme poster child for a man with status. It's because the guy who throws parties that people attend inherently builds status. The party doesn't have to be at your house, but the party or the project has to be happening and it has to be attached to you and your archetype and what you're working on. You can use the organizations you're part of. You can work inside the events of different venues you participate in. And the parties, they carry a lot more weight when they are bled in with the project that you're working on. A few weeks ago, I was having a chat with Thomas and he told me one of the coolest experiences he had in recent years was going to a film festival.
That's a major key. Major key, because you're throwing this party, but you're leveraging the status of the place that you're working for or you're working with or your client. So what it does, it's kind of like an exchange. It's like, hey, client, here I have some status from you. They're like, great, thanks. And like, now I'm going to bring you people. And they're like, oh, you're bringing people. Now you're more valuable to the brand as well. So it works out for both people. My homie Luke, back in the day, we called it value arbitrage, would be the name of it, which is a great name for it. But also, you could just like think of it as you're rubbing each other's backs, and anybody that you bring to them, they're going to appreciate because you're bringing them more visibility in what they do.
And being able to premiere one of his short films, Voyeurism, and the response of the audience in real time. Being in that environment and being able to show off his project to a live audience, he said, was deeply meaningful. And so these steps, they build very slowly, but they're incredibly rewarding. And that way you don't feel like a phony either. You don't feel like you're fronting because you're not just taking a photo of your abs, the freaking salad that you ate, or even, your dope car. You're showing off, you're displaying your project to a community, to an organization that you're immersed in and a part of. And that is incredibly status building. It literally draws people into your life because they see you being a real person. You know, they see you being Batman instead of the guy who's just obsessed with his own physique. This brings me to the last point, and one that is, you know, as important as any of the others. And that is, don't front. Genuinely be immersed in your life and your projects. The thing with all of these ideas is that there's a very fine line between actually doing the thing and then just trying to look like you're doing the thing. No one really knows the difference, at least on a surface level, if you are actually living out the archetype of a writer or a director or an entrepreneur or a businessman, whatever it might be. No one knows if you're actually doing it or if you're just fronting. Except the honesty of what you are trying to do does sort of bleed through. And we can sort of sense this desperation in people's acquisition of status. At least I feel I can. You can sense it when someone's like doing it for real and they really are like a craftsman of their work, as opposed to the people who just want to show off, you know, and make it look like they're doing something. It's tempting, often in life, it's tempting to just make it seem like you're something rather than to do the thing for real, because doing the thing for real is more painful. It usually takes longer, and you look like a lot more of an idiot behind the scenes when you're actually doing something for real. But it also is like the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. Be the thing for real, and that is the most high status version of yourself you could be. And it's gonna magnetize people into your own life. I can say this with immense confidence because it wasn't long ago that I was doing it for fake. Like about a year ago, I think I was just incredibly insecure about certain aspects of my life. And I was fronting, you know, I was fronting even being a YouTuber, a cinematographer, a director, all this stuff. I was kind of doing the thing, but I was also bullshitting myself and bullshitting the world. And now, hopefully you can sense when I make this video, man, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm actually trying to do these things for real. Whatever results I'm producing, even if they are middling results, it is a genuine effort. And all I ever do now is I share the journey. I share the process of what I am working on rather than fake elements of it. I genuinely share the events, the projects, the place in life that I'm at when it's the real thing and when I've earned it, you know? And it's weird because you don't get feedback from the world as often, but when you do, you know it's a real thing. You know that you've put in work. You've set aside this time to gather experience and invest in efforting towards something rather than just taking a fucking shot of your meal, you know, to let everyone know you've got some abs. Really, the heart of status lies in building up that archetype and working towards some event, some project. You go down the funnel of choosing an archetype, bringing it to its potential over, you know, years, and then eventually turning it into associations. You become more and more a part of other people's Dunbar number, and then you really take over the game. You know, you take up real estate in people's minds, not just as a phony or a fronter, but the real fucking thing. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel features video essays for creatives with a love of cinematography built in and that same genuine intent of wanting to reach your potential as an archetype. If that's something that appeals to you, then consider subscribing. But with that being said, for those of us who choose that specific angle, that competitive advantage that is true to us, and then we try to structure our lives around the great projects that put us into action, to us I say greatness is coming. We'll catch you soon.
Coming, that's what she said. You know, this really reminds me of the conversation that's happening a lot today in like these self-development spaces for men and women. And one of the big conversations is about the term high value. People are literally on YouTube right now arguing about what high value is. And you see it, right? You see them just there, just squabbling, making review videos back and forth. Man, you're not high value. High value is this. High value is 6 feet tall. High value is 6 figures. High value is with 6-pack abs. It's just like talking heads in front of a microphone, like microphone coaches. Microphone coaches. I'm not a microphone coach. I have a microphone, but I've been out in the real world doing this for 15 years. I think high value is really much more indefinable, but I can simplify it like this. High value is achievements. Achievements in life. And that could mean like you went out and you did something with your life and you've achieved something and people can look at it and acknowledge it and respect it and say, yeah, you have done something in your life. So it could be you worked on a certain piece of work or you did something with your physicality or you did something like socially in your community, but you've achieved something. And you may not have 6-pack abs. You may not have 6 figures from it, but you still achieve something. You could be a magnificent painter and be revered by the art community and not have 6 figures and still be high value in those circles, right? It's like high value is contextual to you achieving things in your life. You could be a scholar. You can be a doctor in Haiti. You can be, there's so many things you can do in your life and there's really no limit to it. But if you achieve greatness and many accolades of accomplishment, then you have value, and you're always pursuing it. It's not something you arrive at your life and you're like, I've arrived at status, I've arrived at value. No, it's something you ongoingly pursue in your life, because that is you are. Speaking about brands and stuff, when I was younger, maybe about 16 years old, I got into music production. I was kind of not that great at it, but I downloaded some softwares and I got good at it. Then I used the music production to eventually get into radio stations. I'd call up radios and say, I got a demo, can I play it for you? I pop by the radio every once in a while, and then I eventually started doing segments on the radio. And that led to me then at that point doing more of the radio and being part of the radio station management committee. And then I went and worked for interning for one of the biggest radio stations, which was Mix 96 at the time. Now you may know it as Virgin Radio, all around the world internationally. And I was part of their promotion team, and I would do movie events and all that. And then when I would invite somebody I liked, let's say, somebody who was attractive, I'd invite them to come along with me and hang out at a free movie premiere of a movie before it even came out. Or I'd invite them to come hang out with me at a movie for free, backstage, or a concert by, I don't know, Simple Plan or something like that. It was like, wow, here's a guy who's doing stuff in his life. And it snowballed. I built and built and built on every single level of it, and then expanded it, invited it to other people, and invited them into my world. And that was an achievement, but that was also a true indicator of status. This is my definition of status and high value. But the path that you take to it are many. And it's like a make your own pathway character in a video game. You can choose who you want to be. The mage, the wizard, the brawler. Who do you want to be? You get to choose. And on that path, you get to decide how you want to live your life. And that's the beauty of it. Your definition of it. And you don't need to be anybody else's definition, as long as you end up at the goal of that path. Do you want to see more stuff about high value? Do you want to see more videos about making people chase? Do you want to see more videos about getting people to like you? I got some stuff up here in the top left-hand corner, right-hand corner. Click the playlist, and I'll see you in a bit. We got more to go, baby. This is just the beginning. And may the light forever be with you. Cheers.